On this episode of The Basement, we tear into our first build video series. This is the Traynor YT-15. Who is that? Come on in, sit it right there. All right, well, have a good night. Thanks, have a good night. Door for you. Well, hello, welcome to another episode of The Basement. So, what you see before us is a vintage 1974 Traynor YB-15. This is a 2x15 cabinet. It actually goes with the YBA1 head. This is a 50 watt head. This is an all tube head. Uses 6 CA7 power tubes. There's 2 of them, and then there's 3 AX7 preamp tubes. So this feeds this sucker right here. This thing's a little rough. So the first thing we're going to do with this cabinet, what I want to do is I want to restore it. One of the things that's got wrong with it is it's got a bottom speaker that's completely blown out. Now these use 15-inch Marshland speakers. It's one of the original Canadian companies that manufactured the most low-end speakers from what I've been able to research. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to source a recone kit and a voice coil kit for the original Marshland speakers. I'm going to at least try and salvage the magnets and the cages, but if that's not possible, I have 2 other 15-inch speakers that I can drop in here instead that came out of the first ever bass cab I ever had. I had a 69 PV215 that looks basically just like this with the aluminum sides. It's just older. It was really beat up. I didn't like the sound of it. Really, this is the first cabinet I ever had as a kid. I think I got it when I was 14 for my 14th birthday. And then at some point in my 20s, I ended up getting some PV Neo 15s, and I dropped them in there. And I kept the original big old square back Celestion speakers with the square back magnets. So I still have those kicking around somewhere in my closet. So if worst comes to worst, I'll just drop those in this cabinet and see what they sound like. They might actually be more powerful than what originally came in here. One thing that's really interesting about the YT-15 cabinet is that it actually is rated at 8 ohms. So to get 8 ohms, you've got 2 16 ohm speakers in it, and what it's trying to do is that head is meant to actually feed 2 of these cabinets if you wanted it to. So they bumped up the ohmage on the individual speakers so that you can run 2 cabinets out of the same head. From what I understand, these things were not very loud, were not very powerful to start with. So I'd like to keep it as original as I possibly can, even though it's not going to be very loud. I've got, the Guy and Kruger 412 cabinet over there if I want to get silly loud. But really I just want to try and keep this thing as true to form as the original. So this thing has been collecting dust sitting next to a landscaping trailer in my sister's basement for the last 10 years probably. So we've got some issues. We've got, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but on the back here, let me back this thing up, we've got mold all over the place from it sitting back there for so long. And the front grill cloth has got a couple of rips and tears in it wherever the cross bracing is. So there's tears here. I'll get a close-up shot of that, and there's a big one down here at the bottom. So we're going to have to address that. Again, I want to try and keep this as close to original as I possibly can. So I don't know if I can find the actual original correct speaker grill cloth, but I know Fender makes some stuff that's got the silver in it. And if worst comes to worst, we'll pop that on there. Alright, so I'm just going to use some Lysol solution and don't tell my wife, but I've got one of our dish towels to try and clean this sucker up. Look at that. That is nasty. So I actually want to try something different on this cabinet. The Tolex isn't really that bad a shape, considering its age. It was built in 1974 from what the serial number can tell me. But there's a couple tears in here, a couple small nicks and tears. Not that big a deal, but I want to try and do to fix it, mainly because there's not a whole lot of risk of it going wrong, because I can always peel it off. I want to try patching some of those rips and tears with Plasti Dip. I'm going to get the aerosol stuff, because I'm going to use that also to mask off and fix the logo. That's all the silver paint has been rubbed off from years of use. So I'll mask off the black area with the Plasti Dip spray and then peel off the lettering and then spray paint over it silver, and then I can peel off the background. So that's the plan for that. And since I already have the can of Plasti Dip, what I'll do is I'll spray it into the cap and use a small paintbrush to just kind of dab it in and fill in the gaps and the little small tears of Tolex and see what it looks like. It may turn out well, and if it doesn't, I can just peel it off and not have to worry about it. So that's the plan for now. So now you can really see kind of the mold that I'm talking about down here at the bottom of the cabinet. What worries me about the mold is I'm not sure if it's actually inside the cab as well. We're going to yank one of the bottom speaker out, which is the one that's damaged, and see how bad it is inside. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to actually clean up inside the cab. I've not pulled it apart, so I don't know if there's insulation that's spray glued on the inside or not. Probably isn't. That's typically the case with cabinets from this period, from what I've been able to research, but I won't know till I tear into it. But in the meantime, let's just worry about cleaning up the outside and then kind of go from there. Yeah, now that I see the top of this, I don't know how this is showing up on camera, but even with it clean, there's like stuff inside in the grain of the Tolex that once it dries, it's just not getting it. So I may have to come back and hit this with a scrub brush or something like that to get that out. We'll see what happens. Look how nasty this back is, especially down here at the bottom. Yikes. Well, that's kind of interesting. It looks like there's a 3/4 inch jack down here. That's I did not know that. It's a little weird. Either that or that was for a swivel caster, because it looks like there's holes on all 4 corners. So that's probably what that was. They just left this plate in. It was probably a swivel caster. It's probably what it was. Alright, so now we got that done. I'm looking at the top of the cabinet. It's really not cleaning up that well. That's about right, at least based on what I've experienced with the head. I'm not sure really what the best thing to do to get whatever this caked on dust is out of the grain of the Tolex. So if anybody knows or has a good cheat or trick to doing that, to cleaning Tolex and cleaning it right, drop me a comment and let me know what your secret is, because I can't figure it out. Anyway, let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Let's pop the grill cover off and see what we got going on inside, okay? Alright, so most of these are just held in place by friction or a little bit of Velcro in the back. Yeah, it's got Velcro. Alright, that's pretty easy and forgiving. Oh yeah. Look at that. that'll cause some problems. That is a giant gaping hole in this 40-year-old paper cone. So let's yank it out of there. Hopefully we can have some luck with it. I'll have to clean this up a little bit later. And we're going to recover that. Alright. Fortunately, there's only 4 screws holding this thing in. The plan is to take this speaker to a place in Marietta, Georgia called Northwest Speaker. The guy down there does great work. I assume that they're still in business. I hope they are. So I had them actually recone my 18-inch Black Widow behind me and put a new voice coil in it. I had them do an 8-ohm voice coil so I could run like a 410 on top of it that's an 8-ohm cab and still put a 4-ohm load on the head. So, and I also added a speak-on jack to it too so it could handle the power a little bit better. And sounds a lot better. It still sounds like an 18. Cool thing about those older PV Black Widows is they actually had a lot of nice mid-range punch to it, but still moves a ton of air, and that's what that thing does and does well. That's the only reason I've kept that cab, because it's not the greatest in the world. I kept it mainly because it was the first piece of real gear that I bought out of high school right as I graduated. So I took some of my graduation money, I think it was under $100. I want to say I paid $75 for that cab, maybe 100. I don't know, I don't really remember. It could have been as much as $150. All I know is I felt like I got a good deal. Alright, so this has the old fabric insulation wires with the lacquer varnish over it. That's kind of cool. The actual inside of this cab doesn't look too bad. It looks like it's just straight up 40-year-old pine plywood. Not a whole lot going on. I'll get a close-up of that in just a second. But here we go. Here's the 15-inch Marshland speaker. It's got a really light magnet on this thing. This speaker does not weigh a ton. But there you can see the hole. It's giant. So that's going to be it for this first video. On this build series, I've got to try and source parts for this bad boy, see if we can actually do what I need to do, which is to replace the cone on both of these speakers as well as the voice coils. Just because this thing's been sitting for so long, I want to make sure that when we finally do reunite it with the head, that it'll sound as good as it possibly can, and at least give you that nice vintage 70s tone. So it'll pair up nicely with that 73P bass restoration project I've got in the pipeline as well. So until next time, this is Brian coming at you from the basement.